Hello and welcome to the debut edition of the O&G Strike Zone. My name is Bryan Fulford, and I am joined by fellow Rattlers, Kelvin Rosier and Kofi Hemmingway. And we are bringing a show that we hope will shine a beautiful light on the great athletic programs at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, better known as FAMU, and also the sports and culture and just everything surrounding FAMU athletics. And that is why this show exists. We are part of the BCSN podcast network, and our host of shows, you may have seen me, of course, on the BCSN Sports Wrap, but the new voices that you see from Kelvin and Kofi will be a part of this show. And as the upcoming season approaches, I'm sure you will see them on other shows as well. So we're going to go around the horn and kind of introduce ourselves. I'll come in last because you probably have heard me. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but I'll turn it over and I'll let Kelvin and then Kofi introduce themselves, their background, how they came to FAMU, and then I'll kind of come in and last behind them. So I'll go over first. Kelvin Rosier. Kelvin, how you doing, my man?
I'm good, man, and I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this and the invite. You know, my comfort level generally is in the background, but we'll see how this goes. I'm known as Mr. Orange and Green. I've been known to wear orange and green head to toe a whole week, never the same outfit.
Beautiful outfits, by the way. If you haven't seen them, I'm sure we're going to be flashing those up during the course of the show.
Yes. So I'm a local, went to FAMU High, and graduated from FAMU in '98, and been active with the Alumni Association and boosters and so forth, and active with supporting FAMU athletics for a long time. Love it. We've had these kind of discussions that we're going to have today at different activities and events and on the phone and social media and message boards. So it's time, I think, the world hear what we have to share and our passion. And again, thank you.
Well said, well said. Kofi, how you doing, my friend? What do you got?
I'm doing great, man. I have been a Rattler, I've been a Rattler since 1972. When we moved from Columbia, South Carolina. My parents taught at Benedict University, and they matriculated and moved down to Tallahassee, and I've been a Rattler ever since. I want to say that I've been to the football games since 1972, when Bragg Stadium's parking lot was gravel. It was rocks in the parking lot, and Bragg Stadium was green. So I remember those days, and I'm anxious to see the glory days return. I'm anxious to talk about stuff. I've known Kelvin since kindergarten. We both attended FAMU High. I also attended Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, but we have literally been talking about FAMU athletics since at least 1982.
Those had to be some killer kindergarten sessions there.
You have no idea. You have no idea.
You know, after you saying that, and at some point we will be getting into discussions at a later point throughout the year on subjects that were covered there at FAMU High, maybe even giving shout outs to various people. So look, the interesting thing is I feel like the out of towners, I always do. I'm just a kid from Indianapolis, Indiana, grew up in the Bean suburbs of Warren Township, and I found my way to Florida A&M thanks to the Circle City Classic My parents are HBCU grads from Norfolk State, and it was Florida A&M's visit. I believe it would have been 1987, the third year. 86, thank you. I know it was the third year. That's right, because 84 and 85 were the Mississippi Valley State Grambling years. It was the 86 year. I was probably just a sixth grader, just beginning to get into the band and all of that stuff. And I just remember my father always telling me these stories about, Bryan, you got to see the Florida A&M Marching 100. When you see what they do, when you just listen to the sound, and okay, Dad, looking for it, and it blew my mind. And so from that point, I fell in love with the 100, fell in love with playing music, and fell in love with Florida A&M as the years would grow into high school. And I was fortunate enough to be accepted and travel all the way from Indianapolis to Florida, Tallahassee, and really never came back except to visit parents and a few friends. I stayed in Florida. So, I'm an SBI graduate, finished in 98, did a little work with a show called Snake Eyes, produced by a couple of great ladies, Kelsey Scott, Nicole Collier, worked with some great people, had a chance to work with Will Packer, the great Will Packer, back when, before he blew up and became, everything that he's become. So it was a good time, great experience. And I think we all, the one thing we all definitely have a shared passion for is athletics, because at some point we've all found our way into working with the athletic department in various ways. So why don't we kind of talk about that? I know for me personally, it was being an intern or sort of just kind of hanging around the athletic offices where Dexter Martin was over marketing at that time. Alvin Hollins was the sports information director. And that's kind of when I knew, watching how those two men worked and their professionalism and just seeing everything that they did, I just tried to soak that up. And so, and that was my first introduction to FAMU athletics at that time. So how about you guys? What was your role or anything that you want to share as it relates to working with FAMU athletics?
I'll go first because Kelvin, well, for me, my father was the faculty representative for athletics. And so all of the coaches, anytime a coach was hired, he was on those committees. And so having a front row seat to the procedures and who was applying for the job, who was coming after the job, who we should get, who we weren't getting, why we weren't getting them, all of that was a part of, my growing up, hearing all of the juicy details and that sort of thing. But then also, having conversations with Alvin Hollins coming up, growing up, meeting him, fellowshipping with him, having long talks, and then also going to the football games and actually participating on that, Dexter Martin's team with the marketing team. Herb Reinhardt was actually my coach at the National Youth Sports Program, which used to take place in the summertime. Herb Reinhardt is now the athletics director at Valdosta State University. Mm-hmm. So I've had a long history with FAMU athletics, and I actually had an opportunity to also serve as the voice of Bragg for a couple of years.
Yes, nice. Yeah, very, very good. I think I got a chance to meet Herb at Valdosta State that year when Valdosta hosted and they were playing Bowie State. And that was the year they actually ended up winning. That was just a couple of years ago. So that was, got a chance to meet him. So interesting to see how all that ties in. Kelvin, your background?
I grew up watching all FAMU games. Most of my coaches in high school were FAMU grads. And when I graduated and then came back from the military in college, me and a bunch of FAMU students helped coach at FAMU High School with Coach Jacobs for many years. And we had a couple of very talented teams there and some guys who we actually schools. Many went to Power 5 schools. Some even, played in the pros. And from there, during the 90s and so forth, when Coach Joe was there, it was a bunch of young, very young students and alumni that wanted to support the program and give directly to the program. So the concept of the QB Club was started, and I was one of the original officers of that, and we were able to get a blessing from the university and create some activities and some opportunities to support FAMU athletics directly. And then I worked at the university for several years in many capacities, and it always seemed to end up that I was assisting with a lot of the events and the facility side of things. And then I spent a couple of years also working directly with athletics, with turf field, the baseball scoreboard, and some of those things, and enjoyed my time with the basketball and baseball program as administrator for those two sports.
Nice, nice. So one of the things, fellas, I think that when you put something like this together, and what we're hoping to do is to continue to shine a light on the great people, student athletes as well, administrators, coaches that make up Florida A&M University athletics and the great athletic programs. It's a great time, of course, with FAMU moving from the MEAC to the SWAC. And I think it's a great timing for this show and for us. And so I hope that anything that people hear from us understand that it comes from a place of love. I mean, we are alums. Now let's get it, let's make sure we understand that. And so if ever, there's a time when somebody feels like we got it wrong, hey, we want to know. Let us know, reach out, and look, if it's a matter of coming on the show, or if we need to debate it, talk about it, maybe we get something wrong and we got to retract something. There's no shame in that, but we're going to give you our opinions, and we just want to engage the population and just give some different perspectives, because there is more to Florida A&M University than football. I know football is it's a natural in most college athletic programs, but I think we've got a lot of programs that are doing some great things. And I was reminded of that when I was going through and looking at some of our history in the MEAC. And so, we'll get to talking about that here coming up a little bit later. So again, that's what the O&G StrikeZone is here for. Of course, the O and G, if you know, you know. I mean, I shouldn't have to spell that out for you. I gave somebody else that name because we tossed around a few different names, guys, right? And I gave somebody that name, and instantly they were like, oh, that's dope. I like that. And I didn't have to explain. He just kind of knew what it was. So, that I don't know which one of you guys owns credit for coming up that. I don't remember. It wasn't me. So I'll admit that. It was either Kofi or Kelvin. One of you two guys came up with that. And so maybe it was a combination of both of you. But I love it. And it sounds great. Let's do this. Segment one, we talked about, obviously, we're coming out of the 2019, I keep saying 2019 because it feels like it was the last time we played any activities, really. But the 2020-21 school year, challenging year, no doubt, for every coach and athlete. At some point, if you played a season, you probably didn't get through it all the way because of COVID. There were cancellations, there were postponements. Sadly, there were seasons canceled, but all wasn't bad, So I thought what we would do is kind of talk about maybe just the best and worst of the past year. And I mean, obviously there may be something on the field or on the court, but obviously it may just be a general topic kind of thing. So I thought we'd just kind of go around the horn and shoot out. If you can think of maybe, look, you don't have to get too detailed, or you can be general, however you want to be, guys. Best and worst from the past school year. Obviously, 2020, 2021, or maybe even if you want to dig into the end of the previous school year, because obviously we know that got interrupted. Let's just go and let's see what we come up with, best and worst from the previous year, before we even start talking about what's coming down the road. Kelvin, best and worst from last year.
So I'll start with the worst, and COVID-19 has to be the worst. It had a tremendous impact throughout the landscape of athletics, pro and collegiate. And of course, with our program was no different. The first thing that comes to mind was the impact it had on the kids and their eligibility, the seniors. It impacted their season. They worked hard, they were looking forward to participating. And when it first got shut down, I believe it was right before the basketball tournament, NCAA. And so, from there, pretty much all sports programs for that season was interrupted. Now, the NCAA did try to remedy that by coming up with a waiver so that those kids didn't get penalized. They'll get another year to come back. But that created other problems for athletic departments. It kind of threw off the recruiting cycle and the normal number of scholarships, which has a financial impact. Also, it took away some revenue streams in terms of the amount of money from the media agreements. And then, of course, most athletic programs at our level, football is the king. And we ended up opting out with our program, and therefore there were some tough choices that had to be made. A lot of schools had to cut some programs, they cut staff. I mean, even at Florida State, they did reductions in terms of salaries and so forth. So COVID-19 was definitely the worst. From my perspective, being a facilities guy with facilities background, I'm really happy and proud of the facility improvements I see. I think the new field house looks beautiful and the work they've done there. Of course, with the money we've got from the city of Tallahassee and what they're doing with the west stands and the stadium, and then the softball field, turf field. There's just been some really good needed improvement. And I think we're seeing some of the fruits of that labor with how all of our sports are doing in terms of recruiting. Nice.
All right. Good best and worst. Kofi, how about you? Best and worst from the past year?
Well, he hit it dead on the head, just starting with the absolute worst. You don't get any worse than COVID-19 and the apprehension that was coming along with it and the difficult decisions that came behind it. With the loss of, I want to say, the different programs and how that impacted Rattler Nation, how that impacted our flow, how that impacted recruitment, how that impacted our engagement. But the good thing is, I think it opened up an opportunity to create different avenues and different ways to communicate with the fan bases, with our fan base in particular. And it helped to, I want to say, create different ways that, maybe Rattler Nation could be marketed across or even around the globe. That being said, the top news for me was FAMU joining the SWAC, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and the Nike sponsorship with LeBron James, I think, is unparalleled. We had already signed or had an agreement, not signed, we already had an agreement in place with Adidas, which was already going to be the best deal for HBCUs across the board. And then some things happened behind the scenes, and Nike was able to come to the forefront with LeBron James, and that seemed, that just made it a no-brainer. But having that brand entity behind FAMU is unparalleled, and I'm so excited to see exactly where this is going to take FAMU athletics.
So let me ask this, Kofi, because you hit on one of my two best, which was the Nike and LeBron relationship. And Kelvin, you can jump in on this as well. Why do you think LeBron and Nike chose FAMU? I mean, look, go ahead.
Decisions are made based off of who is at the table. Okay, so let's start there. So FAMU has one of the good things about the SBI, the School of Business and Industry, as well as journalism, is that our people are behind the scenes, and they are decision makers at major news networks, as well as major sports apparel companies, as well as major sports media companies. When people look at how FAMU got on ESPN Game Day, that was because one of our guys that was a graduate of the School of Journalism was a decision maker and was like, we're going to put FAMU and Hampton on ESPN Game Day. And that was that. So the guy, let me not get ahead of myself. FAMU has very important people. The guy that was at Converse, once Nike and Converse had that little deal, was able to coerce. But I think that what really attracted LeBron James and sealed the deal was FAMU has the fan base. We don't have just any fan base. Our people want Nelia. Our people wear Nelia. Our people buy Nelia. It is well documented that FAMU, along with Southern University, have the highest number of paraphernalia that is sold on a global, on a global basis. So that's well documented. Having the decision makers at Nike to bring LeBron James to the table where he could consider and look at all that FAMU has to offer. FAMU has a rich athletic history. Along with the fan base, it has a rich athletic history. We have a history of winning. We have a history of being in front in the media. We have a dynamic school. We have 37 conference championships in football. We have 15 national titles in football alone. That does not include the Hall of Fame people with Bob Hayes. That does not include Althea Gibson with Wimbledon. That does not include Bob Hayes with track and field as an Olympian, or Willie Gallimore. It doesn't include any of those people. But having that rich history, having that heritage, and then also the climate that was in the United States at that time has provoked many athletes to say, hey, let me reconsider where my money is going. Let me see if I can really help somebody or help a school or help my people to get to the next level. And so I want to say that all of that was a recipe for the conversation to be had where LeBron could be at the table and see the greatness that FAMU brings.
Kelvin, what do you want to add on that?
I think Kofi covered it really well. The only thing I would say is that timing generally matters. And he talked about some of the social issues and the trend of folks returning to HBCUs. You see it with star athletes taking head coaching positions. And I know we'll talk about it a little bit more. And then I also would say that along with the relationships, generally people give the relationships, and somewhere along that line, along with the decision makers, there was someone within Nike that had a relationship with LeBron that he trusted, and our brand and our name and all these other things, they came to a decision that from a business standpoint, as well as a relationship standpoint, that it was something they wanted to do. And that says a lot about FAMU brand.
No, yeah, and it says a lot too. I mean, if you guys think back to when Jordan started his brand, and that Jumpman symbol. And I'm assuming LeBron's symbol will be the sort of the crown thing, the L, which looks like the L and the J or something like that. That started with probably his alma mater, right? Carolina. Or did it start? It may have started with somebody. It may have even started with Michigan, who started with the Jumpman logo first. But I'm willing to. I think it started with his alma mater. The thing about James really didn't have an alma mater. Obviously, we understand his story. Like his story, he went from high school to the pros, and you know, I know at times he's been a big supporter of, you know, Power 5 teams, Ohio State, Kentucky, things of that nature, even Duke. And I thought it was really significant that he chose FAMU to be the first signature program where all 14, and I'm gonna, you know, just so everyone knows, it's all 14 programs, all 14 sport programs will wear and the 100. Let's not forget the 100, right? Because the 100 is a part of this as well. Nike will supply footwear, uniforms, apparel, equipment, and our sports teams are going to be outfitted in the LeBron James uniforms, apparel, and footwear. Obviously, if you're on social media, you've seen the shoes and some of the different shoes I've seen from the men's basketball program, and I'm sure over the course of the season, it'll be really exciting to see all of that. And I know I'm jumping way ahead, guys, but as I was hearing Kofi talk about that relationship, there's a certain high-level prospect in the James gang that I don't know, man. I'm going to start to keep my eyes open. Somebody may be coming to FAMU to spend a year in college. I'm just saying, if somebody's going to do it, where he might go for a year in college, somebody in the James gang might end up at FAMU. But anyway, that's another topic. That's another topic. But I just,
well, you know, Ken Griffith Jr.'s son plays football.
Look,
for
yes,
FAMU.
yes.
And Ken Griffith Jr. is a Nike man.
Yes.
So please don't underestimate any
Look,
of those things playing a factor. So
I hadn't even really given it serious thought until I heard you really break that down the way you did, Kofi. So I mean that's gonna have me buzzing and kind of keep an eye out on young Bronny and seeing what his future holds. So that's kind of I'm gonna also go with a number 1B in terms of best. We did win a championship. I don't know if people know this, but FAMU did win a championship this past year, and that goes to golf. That goes to our golf program, won their very first MEAC championship. And it, of course, is the last. So it's like there's no better way to get your first on the way out the door of the MEAC to the SWAC. And so our golf program winning the SWAC, that was the only conference championship that we won this past year. So congratulations to our golf program on doing that. And I feel like I gotta, I want to make sure I mention as I'm
right.
Go ahead and say that again.
Congratulations and thank you, Coach Rice. Great job, you and your team and your staff.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I definitely think we got to make sure we mention a program and Coach Mike Rice for that start. It's a great start going into the SWAC, no doubt. Worst of the year, COVID, obviously, but for me, it was how COVID affected cancellations. I thought the worst of the year was when our women's program opted out, women's basketball program opted out on the week of their season starting. And I believe it was going to be a game against Florida State, if I'm not mistaken. So it would have been in Tallahassee. And this happened, I believe the game was scheduled for like a Wednesday. the day before Thanksgiving. The news of them opting out was on a Monday. Not going to disparage the women's decision to do that. I hated it for Coach Pillow. I mean, new coach coming in. I'm really excited about what she's going to bring to the program. And it was disappointing that happened when it did. But I thought it was also interesting that of all of the programs that opted out of this year, and we were in a different situation than Bethune, guys, right? Bethune chose administratively to bench all of their programs. Ours wasn't necessarily that case. But we had volleyball that didn't play, bowling didn't play, cross country, women's cross country, softball didn't get a chance to finish their season. They had some cancellations. And then our women's track and field, right on the eve of the MEAC tournament, them along with the women and the men had to pull out. And it was a trend that I saw happening in a lot of places across the country, that for whatever reason, and people will maybe jokingly say sometimes women are smarter than men, and sometimes women are a little more health conscious than us men, or men's young men even. It's not lost on me that it's the women's programs that opted out. In a lot of places across the country, you saw opt-outs by women's programs, not necessarily men's programs. The men's programs, when they opted out, 9 times out of 10, it was from an administrative level. So that was my worst. And again, not disparaging anything. I understand it. I understand why it happened. I hated to see it happen. Let me spin it forward here. We're in a place now where vaccinations have the country feeling a little better about itself, but we're still officially in a pandemic. I don't think the CDC officially said we're out of a pandemic. Even though a lot of places are relaxing restrictions, a lot of upcoming sports, stadiums across the country are expecting 100% capacity. What do you guys think the future looks like this upcoming year? And I know this could be a long conversation, so feel free to make it short and we can talk about it another time. Is Rattler Nation ready to come back 100% Bragg Stadium, to the Lawson Center? Kofi, I'll start with you.
They're ready. I think that's evident by the fact that the number of tickets that have been sold for the Orange Blossom Classic and the hotels that have been sold out for the Orange Blossom Classic are a testament to the fact that Rattler Nation is indeed ready to resume, I want to say, the Rattler Nation government as being one of the highly attended fan bases in college sports, especially among HBCUs. There is no substitute for connectivity. I think people really, the COVID-19 affected the mental health of a lot of people. Homecoming is more than just, okay, we're just going to have a football game. It's an opportunity to hug people, to have conversations with people, to embrace people that you have not seen, to love on people. And that whole aspect has been missing. And I know just people just around the country are anxious to see that get back on track for emotional reasons. That being said, good leadership looks at the big picture, and the science is the science. COVID-19 has not gone anywhere, and COVID-19 is not going anywhere, and it's going to be here to stay. So what we have to do is to fellowship with precaution. I think that there has to be even a willingness to understand that things could shift and shift very quickly. That the reality is that we could lose football players. There could be things that may happen during the season that will change the seating capacity or the attendance capacity based off what we see. So all of these things are, I want to say, a recipe for future conversations because we have no way of knowing. We cannot see the virus physically. We see the effects of the virus. Just the news has had a whole bunch of other things to kind of like talk about. People just like COVID-19, whatever, but it's still killing people. So at the same time, people have to take those precautions and keep those things in mind going forward.
Kelvin?
From an optimistic standpoint, Rattler Nation is absolutely ready. And
We always,
we stay ready, number one. We're really excited about the whole SWAC move. It's been a year since we had a chance to talk trash and bragging and so forth. And we didn't have homecoming. So from all the chatter that I'm hearing, folks are absolutely prepared and ready. That being said, it's uncharted territory. We just saw Chris Paul sideline for about 10 days with COVID protocol, and that's the NBA. So we don't know where we're going to be at this point in the fall exactly. I know that most universities and pro stadiums have moved forward and are planning on 100% capacity, and that's responsible with the science and where we are right now. But we just have to see. And my concern is, how do you deal with the mask mandate? What is going to be the protocol with that? It's going to be consistent from event to event, stadium. Different states have different rules. They're in different places. If one staff member or somebody from a team contracts COVID, does it shut down the program? So I'm cautiously optimistic, but excitement is definitely there.
It's funny you mentioned those protocols. That's one of the things that I'm already nervous about, especially after what we saw in the NCAA men's baseball championships. A team who was on the verge of going to the championship lost half their roster to COVID or contact tracing. And then on the eve of them playing the quote unquote knockout game, got told that they can't even play that. They had a forfeit, you're done. I would hate there's not going to be room to reschedule games. So, what's going to be the protocol? That's what we got. Football media days coming up. After that, there'll be volleyball media days, and then later basketball. I think it's important now that we hear from the athletic directors, AD Gaucher, or even Commissioner Dr. McClellan at the SWAC and our other conferences to hear what's going to be the protocol. I'm even going to go as far as saying, what about the Orange Blossom Classic? What are their protocols? Are they going to require any type of testing? Because God forbid, you're the organizer of this. Can you imagine, Kelvin, you want to be the optimistic. I'll play the other side just to be devil's advocate here. I don't even want to imagine what something like that might happen on a Monday of the Orange Blossom Classic week, and you have protocols that cause half our roster to be ineligible to play. So, but it's a reality that at least right now, until we hear what measures are going to be in place, that's something that worries me right now, because I do think with this new Delta variant, and I only mention that off of some news I've heard, our southern states are under-vaccinated and our people are under-vaccinated. And they're saying that that is affecting us. It could affect us, so those are things that I think we have to ask people, media, Black college media. We have to ask these questions. I know, me like anybody want to stick my head and say, don't test. You don't want to find out, do what? Don't test and let's play. We'll worry about the symptoms. But look, I've after having seen this for the past year and a half, I understand that's not feasible. And I know, nobody wants to be sued on the back end or be held liable on the back end. So, you know, otherwise we would have played football in the spring. I mean, I'm just keeping it real. Otherwise, I think we would have, a lot of schools would have played HBCUs, that is. So that's one of my big questions, big concerns. And I think it's something that we have to kind of keep our eyes and ears open and find out how administrations are going to handle that. Any other comments on that before we get ready to take a break and come back with a second segment? Nope. All right.
Nope, I think you got it.
All right. When we come back after this break, Kofi's going to lead us into a discussion where we actually get a chance to meet and talk about some of the administrators, some of the coaches that, dynamic people, the impact people that we need to be paying attention to. Rattler Nation, you may know some of these names, you may not. We don't want to assume anything. But Kofi's going to get us started when we come back from this break with our first administrative and coach spotlight. That's what we're going to call that segment, an administrative and coach spotlight. Kofi's going to lead us into that when we come back from the break. You're watching and listening to the O&G Strike Zone with Bryan, Kelvin, and Kofi. We'll be back right after these words. Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports Network.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids' apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
This is Carlos Brown, letting you know that we're on the move. You can now catch the Carlos Brown Show beginning this July on the Black College Sports Network each and every Saturday from 11 to 1 Eastern Time. That's 10 to 12 Central Time. Same time, new place. On Facebook at the Carlos Brown Show and Black College Sports Network, online at www.mybcsn.net, and on the BCSN app available on Google Play and the Apple App Store.
Welcome back to the O&G Strike Zone. Bryan, Kelvin, and Kofi here. And we move into this segment, which we affectionately call the Administrative and Coach Spotlight, where what we're going to try to do is, at least in this early part of this year, introduce you to some of the individuals within the athletic department, as well as some of the coaches, head coaches, assistant coaches, even probably, that are making things happen for our various programs. And so Kofi we're gonna go through, and today he's got an administrator and a coach that he's going to tell us about. So Kofi, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then you lead us and we'll follow.
All right. Well, we're going to start off with the HRIC, in Rattler Nation when it comes to athletics. And we're starting off with none other than our athletic director, Courtney Gaucher, who hails from Birmingham, Alabama. And we know that he's been with us. I would say he's been with us 2 years now, and he's taken a strong leadership role and a strong hand in getting a lot of things done when it comes to our fundraising, when it comes to our facilities, when it comes to just the overall communication and outlook. And I want to say even branding for FAMU athletics. I think he's done an amazing job of taking FAMU athletics from one level to the next. And so I'm very happy that he's a part of Rattler Nation. He's also serving obviously as one of our vice presidents on President Robinson's leadership team. But that's a very, very, very key role, because no successful athletic program is successful without the blessing of the head rattler, the president. So that is a very valuable entity and a very valuable relationship to have when it comes to the decisions that have been made and the decisions that are going to be made regarding the future of FAMU athletics. So I'm very happy that Courtney is, of course, a part. He did a lot of facilities building. I don't want to say different things, or even when it came to alcohol sales at games, to develop, I want to say, generate revenue for Middle Tennessee State, as well as the University of Miami. And so this is a big deal. So I'm very happy that he's a part of our program.
Can I add what I find interesting about AD Gaucher is he came to us right about at the Florida Classic 2019, right? So it's been a year and a half, really. I don't think it hasn't been a full 2 years. But he came to us at a point where, let's think back to almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. There was so much instability within the administrative levels of not just the athletic department, but our own university, right? And so, I think Dr. Robinson coming in and being the stable voice and finally, ascending and being officially named the president of the university, combined with AD Gaucher coming in. And I know, a lot of people, I heard rumblings, about, his age or experience and things of that nature coming in. But I'll tell you, I think what's been refreshing, it's one of those perfect timings. No one could have foreseen what we were going to have, which was what a pandemic, and how it was going to force us into this new technology that a lot of administrations have been pushed into. And then combined with that, having to deal with some of the ever-changing format or the ever-changing landscape of college athletics and the conference churning and things of that nature. No one foresaw that. Go ahead, Kofi, jump in.
This is a very, very, very difficult and tumultuous time. FAMU is, we're known to have the snake pit. But if you know anything about Rattlers, they're ambush predators, which means they like to hide in secret, and they will ambush whatever's appears to be their meal or their prey when they least expect it. Now, the thing is, this thing can come across a number of different ways. Rattler Nation is very engaged, and whoever our leadership team is, we are very engaged in the number of things that we have. We like to have a hand on our coaches, our athletic staff, We like to have a voice. We like to say, we like to relate to the people that are higher. And so the thing that's very interesting is, because of that engagement can make a lot of people uncomfortable. For instance, at Ohio State, it'd be very difficult for Joe Blow to come off the street and just meet with an Urban Meyer or a Jim Tressel and just do that. In Tallahassee at FAMU on the highest of 7 hills, our coaches are very reachable. Our staff is very reachable, and everything that we say is not necessarily peaches and cream. So everybody is not able to come in and necessarily get stuff done the way that he has. We were at a point where things were very unstable because the leadership at the top was very unstable, and we were very unclear about what President Robinson actually wanted to see from athletics. Many of us were very concerned about the direction of the football team, about the direction of the other crown jewel sports, our basketball team, our baseball team, all of those things that were a crown jewel for FAMU athletics. We were very concerned about the direction. And quite frankly, our facilities had not been addressed at the level that it needed to be addressed in order to get quality athletes, because most of Rattler Nation would just look at stuff and just be like, okay, we supposed to win. Why are we supposed to win? Because we FAMU. Well, it doesn't necessarily work like that. We have to have facilities. Well, guess what? Facilities cost money. So where are we going to get the money from? Where are we going to be? How are we going to be able to do that? And to do that takes a commitment from the top. Then a commitment from the athletic administration, and then a commitment from the alumni and the constituents and the supporters of FAMU. So Courtney being able to come in and get that done, make some decisions, make some hard decisions, and keep the ball rolling, I think is definitely key. That hasn't been without some bumps in the road, with some different things as he came to know and is still coming to know the lay of the land. But at the same time, a lot of these tough decisions have been made. And for the most part, he's done a solid job.
Oh, no doubt. I think that his engaging personality in every show that I've seen him in, which is another thing. Look, I'm going to be real. If I had to do a stock, and I'm just doing an unofficial count on who you have seen, whose administrator have you seen on more shows, and I'm talking more HBCU-centric shows and things of that nature, I think A.D. Gaucher has been on, he's probably at the top of the list in terms of he's made an appearance on practically everybody's show that covers HBCU or maybe college sports that has podcasts. I mean, that's significant when I don't think FAMU ever had that from its athletic director.
Courtney's doing an amazing job from that standpoint. And, I think that as long as he keeps his head level and remains focused and has a good, solid team around him. And remember that the people in Rattler Nation will always have a hand somewhat in what you do, where you go, how you do it, all of those things. Those things are things, because rule number one of the rules is when you come and you become a leader at FAMU is do not rile Rattler Nation. All right. Don't rile Rattler Nation. Don't do stuff that's going to cause Rattler Nation to get on social media and make your life a living HE double hockey sticks.
Like what? What's an example? Give an example. Not that he's done anything like this, but maybe what is something if you were advising, or hey, AD Gaucher called you and said, Kofi, what kind of things do I need to watch out for? What kind of things do I not need to do? You would say what?
I would say remain humble. I would say keep your head on a swivel. Don't make decisions out of emotion. I would say
we've seen that before.
Yeah. That was one of the things that what was my man's name? Hall of
Winslow?
Fame tight end. What was his name? Kellen Winslow.
Yeah, Winslow.
Jesus.
Kellen Winslow came here, bro, and I would, I
With the gold
knew
jacket,
that
right? With the gold jacket.
listen, I knew within my first encounter with him, everybody's like, "Oh, he's telling the truth." I said, I don't like the way he necessarily said that. Now he just kind of like getting here, and while what he was saying was true, that FAMU athletics was broken, the solution aspect of what he was talking about was not necessarily in place. In addition to that, he was very combative and very defensive and took stuff personal. And, he fired Earl Holmes on homecoming week.
Never forgive him for that. I can never forgive him for that.
Bro, then he came in the convocation and got on, I don't know why they put him on the microphone, because that
But they put it on this. Do we really have to talk about it?
Yeah, Kelvin, because look, I missed this. Look, we didn't have video. We didn't have video in this, so come on, we got to talk about it.
They put him on the microphone, and this fool is sitting up there talking about, Rattlers is like, oh, boo, boo, and boo, boo. My mama booed him. It was that bad. So my point is, Courtney's done a good job of bringing solutions. Even if you have to treat people or you have to make a hard decision regarding the employment of the staff and people that you have, and you have to make those, do it with wisdom. Do it with common sense. I'll put it like that. Do it with wisdom. Do it with input from those who've been here longer than you, who might want to say to you, you might want to reconsider how you're doing this or how this is being communicated, because this could cause a problem for you. All right, I'm done about my soapbox.
What do you want to add, Kelvin? Add, please.
Yes, I'm gonna just jump here real quick, and what I would say is, FAMU brand has been great for a long time, right? The opportunity to lead a brand like FAMU, an iconic brand like FAMU, has to be appreciated and treated with care.
It's a privilege.
I agree that I'm really proud of what's happening in terms of you see things, right? We all remember certain ADs and administrators saying a lot at different events, but nothing ever happened. It's good that you can see action, right? Now, COVID-19 really kind of changed things because we haven't had a traditional season where you had to deal with some other potential challenges. And so, and to be able to be nimble enough on your feet to make a decision such as looking at the feasibility study that had already been done and taking advantage of the opportunity and seeing the opportunity in going to the SWAC and being able to sell that, that's impressive, right? So absolutely, there has been some wins. I like to think that the foundation was in place where you were able to pick up the ball and continue on the journey versus building, right? I think that there was some strong foundational pillars, and he's taking advantage of the opportunity, and we just have to continue to work together to move the football forward.
You mentioned things that were already sort of in place that credit him for paying attention to and sort of adding to it. What in play, what would you say right now? Maybe it could be this NIL thing. Is there something that he has done that you can look at and say, that's 100% all AD Gaucher, and maybe nothing is ever 100% yours. I mean, you're kind of we're all caretakers, or he's a caretaker of this brand. And so maybe it's the deal with Nike. Maybe it's the the NIL agreement that they recently signed with the company INFL CR. What is it that you've seen thus far, or what might, if you had to predict, what was something you would say, hey, I'm curious to see if he does this, because this will be something that will sort of be his legacy mark at FAMU, or when he does leave FAMU in X amount of years?
I don't know.
The tough thing
is just one person, right?
Okay.
There's a department here, there's administrators, there's coaches, there's athletes. It's a team. Athletics is a team thing. So, you know, it's tough for me to just say one thing. I do mention about the feasibility study, because when you make transitions and you're talking about changing conference and so forth, that is the standard for all athletic departments and how you make those decisions. That was in place. A version of that was in place. When you talk about we mentioned how we think the facilities improvement that are going on. You know, some of those things were in place. Some of those things, like what they did with the field house, I just have to tell you, from where it was, it's impressive.
Yeah.
So, you know, you want to give flowers for the wins, because it's tough, right? We don't have an endless bank account where, you know, we can tap into.
listen.
So just working in the environment, I understand the challenges and how difficult things can be given you know, the resources. So what I would say is, again, the fact that you can actually see tangible action things, you can see the change over the last year and a half, you know, you have to give kudos.
Kofi,
Yeah,
I'll let you add and then close on the Gaucher.
Just really the whole Rattler Athletic Fund, the engagement and really leadership gives a clear picture of where you are, where you're going, and how you're going to get there. He's done a good job of communicating vision, the why we made the move to the SWAC, the why, you know, the whole thing with it was just maybe a year ago that the field house was in shambles with holes in the roof and all kinds of craziness and stuff going on. That was a lot to be able to pull that trigger on that, and to see that come to fruition is a big deal. So I wish him the best and looking forward for greater things to come from him.
Well said. And I think, I'll give it over to you here in a second, Kofi. I would say what I've seen AD Gaucher do, I think has inspired quite a few other universities. Not going to put any names on it, but if you can look at social media and see things that other schools are doing, I think they started some of their projects right after FAMU started theirs. That may just me seeing it from some orange and green colored glasses. I think he has inspired a few other universities to step up their fundraising activities with terminology very similar to that stuff that we have, and even some of their projects. So when they say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And so those other programs may not say it. Those alumni won't say it, but I'm going to say it. Props to AD Gaucher for leading this team. Very well said, Kelvin. This team of FAMU athletic administrators. So let's go to Kofi. Let's go to our coach spotlight. Our first coaching spotlight is for this year.
Well, yeah, definitely for this segment is none other than head football coach Willie Simmons, who hails all the way from the metropolis of Quincy, Florida. And he's done a brilliant job of leading the Rattler football program back to a place of prominence. And I want to say relevance, and that is key. And that's very difficult to do in a time when you haven't even necessarily played a game in an entire year. But to see how aggressively they are recruiting top quality athletes, how now they can actually bring athletes into the field house without having to hide the field house is a plus. But then in addition to that, selling the program, and even during the downtime, having the vision and the wherewithal to say, let's get a scrimmage against another quality team. Let's scrimmage Albany State. Let's scrimmage the University of West Florida, who won the Division II national title. Let's scrimmage these guys and give our guys something that they can see, have some legs under them, and you can see the culture of the team where they're practicing all around. You got kids doing videos of them throwing, doing a number of different things, the camp visits around the state. He has made FAMU's program, I want to say, better. I mean, I didn't even know what a training table was till he brought it up. It was like, training table? What's a training table? Then he said training table, and I was like, oh, this is why you need training table. And he communicated that, and the next thing you know, we got a training table at FAMU. So all of those things are I want to say, paramount to the success of an overall program.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Y'all hear me?
And
Go ahead.
I'll jump in and say that the angle I'll come at is he's been a great ambassador for the university. He's
Absolutely.
been extremely involved in the community with his players, not only with the schools and so forth, but trying to end the violence and in some of these rallies. And so he's been at the forefront of this stuff, right? And of course, being a product from the greater community area, he's articulate, charismatic, and he's sincere, he's genuine. And so I really appreciate the leadership that he's shown, and evidence of that is that you don't see his players in the news too often getting in trouble, doing the wrong thing, right? They're champions on and off the field. So I think not only is he's a great coach because his record speaks for itself, and he seems to be building a dynasty, so much so that word of mouth, players are recruiting players to play for his program and making the decision to come here when they have options, including at the FBS level. So that tells you what other coaches and peers think about it. I mean, he's had offers from Power 5, programs and so forth. So he shows his commitment here. But I just think we're fortunate to have him at this time, and he's doing a great job.
Yeah, no, this is a great fit right now. I think what's interesting is in a time where you've seen a lot of schools deal with the transfer portal, and I'm talking about kids leaving, or I haven't seen now. I mean, other than obviously we had one player who opted out to go into the draft, but he was an older player at that, and so you kind of felt that might happen once the decision came out that we weren't going to play spring football. FAMU really hasn't lost anybody to the portal. None of our main guys. We've actually added some players from out of the portal. Although I don't think we've lost too many. I mean, you guys might correct me if I'm wrong here. There were a lot. I mean, we were looking at returning a lot on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, obviously outside of the quarterback's going to be the big question, which I'm sure we'll start talking about here in the upcoming month. And that'll be a big debate, but everything else on offense was solid, set, and returning. Defense, we knew what we had. We were expecting for some additions to come in or just some experience to grow. So I think there's stability within the offensive program or within the program that I think, like you guys said, it's a testament to him in that he's been able to keep guys and maybe help them understand that, well, I don't know, maybe it's him, or maybe it's just guys seeing that, hey, I'm here with a special coach. I'm here in a special situation. I'm here at a great school. I don't need to go anywhere else. I mean, granted, there's a handful of schools playing spring ball, but really for FAMU, it was a normal spring. I've been saying this for the teams like FAMU, and I'm going to reference Alcorn State. It was a normal spring. You didn't have to play several games. You had your normal 14, 15 practices. You had your spring games. That's what you would normally do. That's what you did this year is what you did, or what you will do spring 22, what was done back in spring 19. The only time it wasn't done, obviously, was spring 20 because that was the pandemic going on, right? So in that respect, it was a normal year. And we came out of it hopefully healthy, hopefully rested. And yes, we haven't played a football game in 2 seasons, but, you know, it'll be interesting to see how those schools who did not play, how rested they are, how fresh they are compared to the schools that did play, you know? And so it's interesting, you know. I applaud everything that we've seen. Now, look, the elephant in the room, let's be real, is we came very close. We'll put it like this: on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you guys think, how close were we to losing Coach Simmons, in your opinion? 1 to 10.
7.5 or 8.
Kelvin?
I'm not sure. I would probably say 5, 6. It was at least 50-50.
50-50. Yeah, I'd go about 5, 6. I'd say 50-50. I can't look, and we talked about this off air. I think Willie Simmons, you know, sometimes when you see certain people, when you meet certain people, you just know they have that it. I'll equate this to the first time I saw Barack Obama when he was a senator at one of the Democratic conventions, I think it was. I saw his presence and I said, he's got it. Whatever it is that looks presidential, that's it. Now, the question is, can all the other stuff around him, can he survive all of that? Because he has it. I look at Willie Simmons and I see he has it. Whatever it is, that thing is that coaches have, that magnetism that draws money, that draws fans, produces wins, players want to come play for, you know, he has it. I don't think he will leave Florida A&M University for a position coach at an FBS school. At worst, it would be an offensive coordinator position at a Power 5 program. But I think it's more likely he'll be the first, since Willie Jeffries left at HBCU, to go be a Power 5 or upper D1 coach back in the 80s when he left Howard to go be the coach at I think it was it Wichita?
State.
Right. And we've seen that on the opposite side. Kofi, you brought it up how Mike London kind of went from Richmond to Virginia. But I'm talking from an HBCU, and I'm talking an African-American coach. I'm not talking about there have been an HBCU coach to go, but he didn't look like us. He wasn't African-American. Okay. So there hasn't been any that have gone from the HBCU level to an FBS school, Power 5. I'm not gonna lie, Willie Simmons has it. And so I just hope it doesn't happen before he wins us to gets us a couple wins. I don't want just one win. I want a couple wins over Bethune. And I take one SWAC title. So if I get at least a couple of wins over Bethune and one SWAC title, I think a lot of people in Rattler Nation will understand if 5 years down the road, if Willie Simmons progresses on to an FBS program. So I just got to say that. I'm not wishing that to happen. Maybe I'm wrong for even speaking on it, but that's just me. Any you guys want to add to anything on that before we close this segment?
Enjoy him while we got him.
There you have it. It's hard to replace brilliant people. It's not easy. I think that the University of Florida found that out when they hired Zook after they had Spurrier all of those years. What was that? Zook came after Meyer. Either
Zook
way.
came after Meyer, yeah, right. Yep.
Either way. Either way, baby. You know, they had people like, oh my God, like, yeah, I think we should have stuck with
right.
We should have stuck with Meyer. What's the other guy's name? Muschamp.
Yeah.
You know,
I think he came after.
Great position guy.
Sure.
Great position guy, but he wasn't urban, you know, and I think Muschamp is a football guy, but having the perfect fit for your program is not easy to do. It's not easy to do. I don't know who's going to follow Saban, you know, when he leaves.
Oh, Dabo. It's already written.
We'll see.
But I will say this last thing though. Look at I think when you have a group, Robinson, Dr. Robinson, Gaucher, Simmons. Now you got that three very important players in moving FAMU athletics and FAMU football into this new SWAC. Three very important people. And I think they're the right combination in terms of presence, personality, the way they engage with people. I think it's a great combination. It is very hard to find that kind of combination that works. I mean, if we talk about moving in and bringing in dollars, bringing in major money, this is a great group, these three. I don't know how long we're going to have these three, but like you just said, Kelvin, we better appreciate these three that we have right now, especially going into this first year of the SWAC, where it's about to get, man, I'm telling you, when the heat gets turned on come August and September 4th, woo, we better appreciate it while we got it, because it's going to get hot. It's going to get hot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So great job, Kofi, administrator, coach spotlight, something we'll be doing every show, kind of bringing you a different administrator, a different coach, kind of breaking down, even so much as just giving you an idea on, hey, if you have an issue or a thought about something and you need to reach out, this is the person you need to reach out to. And I think if you're not following AD Gaucher or Coach Simmons on Twitter, you're missing out. I mean, I don't know. I don't have the. I think the Twitter handles are what they are. I think it's at Courtney Gaucher, or I think it's at HC Willie Simmons for Coach Simmons. But they're great follows on Twitter. I'm sure they're on Instagram and Facebook as well. But you need to be interacting with them as much as possible. All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, we got to talk about the SWAC, and we got to say goodbye to the MEAC. Plenty of years and plenty of memories from out of the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. We got to say goodbye to those years and get ready to look forward into these days ahead. And Kelvin's going to lead us into that segment. You're watching the O&G Strike Zone. Bryan, Kelvin, Kofi. We'll be back right after these words. Follow the Black College Sports Network on social media at MyBCSN1, the number 1. On Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at MyBCSN1.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
This is Bryan Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
This is Carlos Brown, letting you know that we're on the move. You can now catch the Carlos Brown Show beginning this July on the Black College Sports Network each and every Saturday from 11 to 1 Eastern Time. That's 10 to 12 Central Time. Same time, new place. On Facebook at the Carlos Brown Show and Black College Sports Network. Online at www.mybcsn.net and on the BCSN app available on Google Play and the Apple App Store.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports
Tell everybody
Network.
they can follow their dreams.
Welcome back to the ONG Strike Zone. Bryan Fulford, Kelvin, Rosier, Kofi, Hemmingway. And now we move into this part of the segment where we bid our fond farewells to the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. And we look forward to being a part of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, the SWAC. Kelvin, you're going to lead us down this path of misery, pain, joy and triumphs, rather. And what do you got for us? Where are we going? You lead, we follow.
It's been an interesting relationship, to say the least, between FAMU and the MEAC conference. From the time we joined in '79, a mere 5 years later, we left the conference. And after the '84 season, we came back the '86 season, and then we left again in the 2000 after the 2003 season. That was the Division I effort, and then we came back in 2005, and now it's 2021, and we're going again. So our record with the MEAC in terms of our 40 whatever year history is 5 years in, 2 years out. About 16 years in, 2 years out. Another 16 years in, now we out again. That's been our history with the MEAC. And some of the reasons behind that, you think about the first time being that the league fined us and made us ineligible for the champion, for the playoffs, because of our dispute with BCSN at the time, and our decision of that game. And so you could argue that the conference didn't have FAMU's best interest at hand in that case. And so FAMU made a decision at that time, what they felt was the best decision for FAMU. They were looking out for FAMU. We wanted to play out, we wanted to be in the playoffs, we wanted to compete at the highest level. And then, of course, again, the idea of competing at the highest level was behind the 2003 effort. The interesting thing about that, Coach Simmons, our current coach now, was coming in as a transfer from Clemson to lead that team. And it was a team that had quite a few players that were coming in, and people were really excited about the potential of that team. Of course, we had the legendary Billy Joe leading us there, and because of the timing, we talk about timing a couple of times. Because of the timing of that, we were FCS when those folks were signing, but when they moved up the date and made that year our transition year for FBS, it made all those transfers ineligible for the season. And so they all had to transfer back out. So 2 years passed, and then we went back on Fred Gaines back to the MEAC. And the Florida Classic was already a signature event prior to the MEAC. And at some point, upon our return to the MEAC, we became a part of the MEAC conference media package, which means that distribution revenue was shared with all the institutions. And if you listen to AD Coach Shea talk about his thinking and reasoning of transitioning to the SWAC, a lot of that talked about revenue, marketing, media, merchandise, and opportunities and increases. So FAMU's relationship with the MEAC has always been one that has been contentious. But with that being said, there have been periods of domination and just pure joy. We've had dynasties, of course, with the Billy Joe football teams in the mid-late 90s to the early 2000s. We enjoyed a lot of success with our volleyball team. We even hosted an NCAA regional in which the champion that year, Stanford, was one of the teams that came and traveled to us in our regional. Won 8 or 9 in a row. We had success under Coach Lang and under Coach Darlene Moore with our track program over a prolonged period of time. Women's basketball enjoyed some good years, both under Coach Clayton and Coach Farmer. And men's basketball had a period where they had great tournament success under Coach Gillespie and of course Terrence Wood transfer and that great game that we had against Kentucky in the first round and the playoff win that we had in the first round. So there have been periods of excellence in all sports almost. We have a lot of championships. So in that sense, the MEAC has been a success for us. But I'm really excited to turn the page and see what the SWAC holds for us.
Kofi, you talked about, and Kelvin, maybe you can even add in, we were talking about that first transition out and what that looked like. And for those who may not know, go back into again why we left the first time back in 83, was it, or 82? Now, 82, we won our first MEAC championship. We were co-champs with South Carolina State in 1982. So a year later, though, we're leaving. And break that down a little more in a more detail, a little bit about, you mentioned a Bethune-Cookman game for those who may not know or may not recall.
Well, that whole Cookman thing, they awarded, the MEAC awarded Cookman the gate receipts, I believe back in 83. We were the home team, or they were looking at, just kind of like doing that. And, FAMU was like, well, first of all, we started the Classic. And Cookman joined in, and then for you all to do that kind of was really wrong, not to mention that the majority of the people that were there were FAMU people. So that was a slap in the face that they took.
you're talking about the 82 season where we beat Bethune 29-14 into the season of 82, correct?
Yeah, that whole transition, but as we transitioned into 83,
okay.
That whole spring was very, 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 spring and summer was very contentious, to say the least. And that's what got us to this particular point. So we ended up not playing Bethune at all in 1983. We ended up not playing them at all in 1984. And then we got back on track in 1985 when cooler heads have prevailed. But, you know, the whole thing behind the MEAC and that whole contentious relationship carried over into a number of different things. And that's largely why much of Rattler Nation basically felt like it was time to go. We were sick of y'all. It's time for y'all to, you know, we carried the conference. I think if you look back even at the attendance figures from the largest crowds ever in the MEAC, FAMU's easily in the top 5. Even South Carolina State, when they hosted their classic game in Columbia, we had like 41,000 people at Williams-Brice Stadium back in 1991. The Florida Classic numbers speak for themselves. You know, all of those games, the Atlanta Classic numbers with Tennessee State speak for themselves. So FAMU was a flagship institution for the school, for the conference. And, you know, we're looking for, I want to say, even greater things as we look to embark on a new journey in the SWAC.
Those years that you mentioned, and just to give people perspective, I don't know if we'll ever get back to these numbers, but when you hear these numbers I'm just going to go down top attended games, right? And I'm going to throw out Ohio State, Florida, Oklahoma, and Miami back in 92. Those are the top 4. But then you've got 03 Florida Classic, 73,000 plus. 06 Classic, 71 plus. 2000 Classic, 70,007 plus. 02, 70,000. Now that says it's in Atlanta, but I don't know if that's a typo or not.
No, because we had a sellout game with Tennessee State in Atlanta, and we had over 7,000 people there. Okay,
right. We did. Yep, that's 03. 99, 70,000. 05. So basically it looks like from 1999 to 2006. That's do the math, 6 or 7 years, 6 years. That's 6 years, 70,000 plus attended. If you want to include 1998, there were 66,000 that attended the Florida Classic. Now, I don't know if we'll ever get back to those numbers again. I mean, I remember those years. Those were awesome crowds, unbelievable crowds. I mean, when you're drawing 70,000. So we're talking about those, what you guys just talked about, those top attended games were absolutely ridiculous, and the attendance on those. Move forward to our departure in the second go around, where the first time under Rudy Hubbard, second time under Billy Joe, where we tried to go Division I. We talked about timing. Kelvin, what can we add? What can you add about the timing of that? Was there a little jealousy from the MEAC, or was it just the timing? Because we saw how the MEAC reacted when Hampton. We saw how they reacted recently when Hampton decided to leave the conference, and they weren't even going to Division I. They were just going to a new conference. We saw how they reacted. What do you recall about that time? Anything you can share about that time when we left and then us coming back into the conference?
So you mentioned earlier about timing and leadership, right? That was a time where we had a lot of changes in terms of the board, you know, AD at the time, and in between that period, we had an interim shortly after. So there was a lot of diversity of thought with the vision. And the vision was, you know, a little out of the pocket at the time, right? But it was a vision. It just needed to be developed more and then have a little more resources put to it. And then because Central Florida at that time, a lot of other programs, the South Florida, I don't know, they had just started their program. They hadn't had a program very long. And but those programs in the 90s, UCF was not FBS Division I program at the time. So they all made their transition during that same time period within 2 or 3 years. But it really changed the course of FAMU football specifically for a significant amount of time. With the changes that happened with the players, we had to play a Division I schedule. So we had a lot of games against Tulane, Temple, Virginia Techs of the world.
Nickel.
So we played a lot of teams with not a Division I talent or resources at the time. And then some of the things fell through in terms of the media. There was a talk about UBC and a media contract that didn't produce. So it was botched. Let's just be honest. It ended up being botched, and it changed the trajectory, because you remember the years prior to that, we were competing for championships. We were playing Georgia Southern, Appalachian States of the world, and Troy State and winning. Being very competitive. So we had what was considered a flagship program, 1AA program at the time. And when we made that decision, we didn't.
Right.
And it took us a while to build it back up.
Yeah. You're talking about there were 7 years from 95 to 2001 where we made an NCAA playoff appearance as either the MEAC champion or the second place team, you know, as a representative, where we didn't go to the Heritage Bowl at that time during those 7 years. And I don't think we've been back to the playoffs since those that 2001 season. I mentioned FAMU's won 7 football championships. 3 of them were unbeaten seasons, and I mean unbeaten in conference. The 1990 season, and then the 95 and 96 season, which was part of a 13-game MEAC winning streak. Went all the way into the 97 season, where we lost I believe we lost the second game.
A&T and Hampton.
Yeah, of the 97 season, where we was just kind of pulling that up here. Yeah, because we beat Norfolk State to start 97, beat Howard, and then lost to Hampton 15-18, and then lost to A&T double overtime.
They cheated. Both of them games, they cheated. Cheated. I ain't gonna miss them.
We still beat Bethune-Cookman at the end of the year. Unfortunately, we ran into Georgia Southern that year. 52-37 lost. And of course, the next year was the magical 98 season. Before we move off of football in our time, greatest MEAC game. Any thoughts? I got a couple of games that I'll throw into the pot, but you guys have any thoughts on maybe the greatest MEAC game, or maybe the greatest MEAC game you saw?
I would have to say FAMU Hampton 96, I think that was. With all those overtimes.
6 overtime game in the Circle City Classic.
Ridiculous. That was crazy. And then I would probably say, I'm going to pull an old one out of the hat. I'm going to say FAMU, South Carolina State, 1983, when RC Easton blocked 2 kicks, 2 punts, and FAMU ended up winning the game.
Yeah, ooh, that's a great memory. 17-14, FAMU won that one back in 1983. What about you, Kelvin?
I enjoyed the A&T series. And so the first one that comes to mind was actually a FAMU loss. I can't remember the exact year, but A&T had a running back called Mo Hicks.
Oh, yeah.
And he came to FAMU, and them 2 years he was there, he gave us fits. But we were both at our peak at that time, and those games were great games to watch. It was high caliber football. So give me any of those 90 A&T games, and then I have to say I took so much pleasure in the last 2 A&T games, 18 and 19.
Yeah.
You know, the HBCU champions, supposed champions,
exactly.
paper champions. But on the field, those Rattlers got it done.
Yes, they did. They did. I'm going to throw in the October. The date escapes me in October exactly, but it was 1998 in Jacksonville. FAMU versus Howard. 2 of the, I probably would say, and we did this on one of our sports rap shows where we kind of broke down the MEAC quarterbacks of the past 50 years. And the Pat Bonner versus Ted White conversation came up. Pat Bonner, by far having maybe the greatest individual season of any quarterback in the history of the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, versus Ted White, who arguably had maybe the greatest career of any quarterback in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. And those 2 worlds collided in Jacksonville. And for FAMU, these records still stand for single game records, not only for passing, but how about opponents passing? These records still stand for FAMU in our record books. Pat Bonner threw 7 touchdowns that game, 509 yards, 39 completions on 66 attempts, all still single game records. Ted White threw 5 touchdown passes, 36 completions, 58 attempts, 561 yards, all single game opponent records. So, I mean, we're talking 12 touchdown passes, over 1,000 yards thrown combined. I just, and from an offensive standpoint, that was an unbelievable offensive performance by both of those guys. I think I do the math. 12 times 6 is 84. So, I mean, I don't know if we had any extra field goals there. I don't know if we broke 100 total, but did I get that right? You're looking like questioning. Did I get that?
12 times 6 is 72.
What'd I say? 72, right?
84. You said 84.
You said 72.
I said, thank you. Don't roll the tape back. Don't roll the tape back. That's
Yeah,
all right.
you said 72.
Well, I said check me here. Check me. Good check. Yeah. So look, that's my greatest game. And then yeah, my other one was, you brought up the 6 overtime game. Greatest MEAC season for FAMU football. Was there one better than the 98 season that you can think of? I thought the 98 season was pretty spectacular.
98 was spectacular for a number of reasons because we just dominated so. But I would have to say, I'm going to say 1990.
Yes, unbeaten season.
That was an unbeaten season. And we played South Carolina State for homecoming that year. And Craig Hall was our punter. And so we were leading the entire game, but South Carolina State had started to make a little comeback in the game. And it was 4th down, and I think about 8. And Craig Hall threw a pass on 4th down as the punter on our own end of the field, and we ended up scoring a touchdown. And I'm sitting up there like, wow. That was the game winner, because we were literally in our own end of the field. I think it may have been around the 20-yard line, and we faked the punt and scored a touchdown.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting about that season, that 90 season, I'm just looking at the record book of the games. We lost the season opener to Tuskegee, would lose to Tennessee State and Alabama State in that year.
Ugh.
And then lose to Southern. This is the one thing I'm going to tell you about going into the SWAC, guys. Our history is so strong in the MEAC, but really against SWAC opponents, there's a few SWAC opponents that are going to really have a feeling. They're going to feel themselves out a little bit, because when they go and look at these career records, you watch the kind of smack talk comes out of some of these schools this upcoming fall. And they're going to say, oh, well, lifetime, we're X, Y, and Z. We've got a winning percentage against FAMU. And obviously, all take that into consideration. Some of these schools we haven't played in 20 years, 25, 30 years, but they've got an all-time win record on us on more than just one school. I think it's at least 2 or 3 schools that we are behind the 500 level on.
Alcorn dominated us from 82. In 82, they beat us for our homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
83, they cheated. You know, every time we lose, I'm going to say they cheated, but they did. And then people, you think the MEAC refs or something? Them SWAC referees?
Oh, we're gonna get into that, I'm sure.
You ain't seen nothing. All right, so let me go back to Alcorn. Alcorn beat us, killed us in 84. And then they beat us again in 85. They were clearly the better team in 84. But, you know, again, they didn't play us in the 90s when we had Billy Joe. And we didn't play them when they had Steve McNair. So that's gonna be a dogfight game, you know, whenever we do play them. They're in the West, we're in the East. Bama State, we're gonna flip that series. We're gonna flip the Jackson State series, hopefully.
I think Grambling is another one where I think we're on the under 500 side on, if I'm not mistaken.
It goes in streaks. You know, there was a time when we dominated Grambling, and then they reeled off a few, I think around 80, 81, 82, they reeled off like 3 straight, and they were able to seize control of the series. That's how that went.
Yeah.
But we're gonna be fine.
Let's take a second and let's go. Any other memories from other sports? And I want to, because I want to make sure we give credit to all that was accomplished by so many teams. FAMU won 10 men's all sports awards. The Talmadge Lehman Hill Award, which goes within the MEAC to the top men's all sports programs. That's basically a 10, and you know,
90 was ridiculous because we won everything. We won everything. We won the basketball tournament. We won baseball. We won track. We won tennis. We won football. We did everything. So, but my favorite MEAC memory was probably that first MEAC tournament, basketball tournament that we won. Prior to, A&T had beaten us in the final round in 88 and 89. And so going into 90, the 91 season, we played A&T that first round, I believe, and we managed to beat them. And that was Greg Finney and DeLon Turner. Mm-hmm. That team, we managed to get past them, and then we beat Coppin State, and we managed to go on ahead and win the championship. But that in itself was always interesting because we were in Norfolk. It wasn't, we're far away from quote unquote Rattler territory. And they were looking to capitalize and hopefully get the CIAA people to buy into the MEAC tournament. I think that was the idea behind moving the tournament to Norfolk. But, Norfolk ended up being pretty good to FAMU. I put it like that.
Right.
For a couple years.
And FAMU basketball is the only program that never won a MEAC regular season title. Although, you mentioned one of the four. We won 4 conference tournament championships. You just mentioned there, Kofi, one of them. We won 3 others later on, including those. Which was it? The 04 season? Yes, the 04 season where FAMU defeated Lehigh 72-57 in the play-in game in the first NCAA tournament for our first tournament win. And that was also the year Terrence Woods won the NCAA's 3-point shootout, which essentially was, an open field of the top shooters in country. So it was a good tournament. That 2004 got a win under our belt. Terrence Woods won that major college players 3-point shootout competition. That was pretty good. We've only had 1 offensive player of the year in basketball, and 1 coach of the year, and 1 rookie of the year. It's like that's the one sport that we really haven't owned in the MEAC is men's basketball. I mean, we've sort of struggled to find our dominance in that sport of basketball. And so, and actually 2 of those awards were recent. Of course, Coach McCullum this past season winning Coach of the Year. MJ Randolph won Rookie of the Year just a couple years ago. Women's sports, we won 11. Oh, I had to mention this, 14 years. You talked about 1990, Kofi. For a 14-year period, we won 10 of those all sports awards from 89 to 2002. And I'm saying even though the MEAC rescinded, or I guess 3 of those got chopped off because of violations of recruiting or maybe APR or whatever, we won them. We know we won them. I mean, it is.
But that was during what we call the glory years, and God bless President Humphreys. He was a large reason why we were able to do what we did. He had tons of relationships, but his legacy in athletics goes a long way to why those teams were successful when it came to getting quality athletes. He personally talked to more than a few and convinced them personally to come. In addition to that, those that may have had difficulty getting into school, it was just a phone call away. Hey, President Hump, can we do X? We need X, Y, and Z. Hump was right there. Boom. Signed it. Signed off on it. It was a done deal. It was not a fight with President Humphreys to do whatever was necessary to ensure that the branding and the success of the school, whatever would help FAMU to gain notoriety, he was all for it.
And it wasn't just the men's sport. The women, during that same time period, case in point, won 11 of the women's all sports awards from the MEAC, called the Mary McLeod Bethune Award. We actually won 9 consecutive years from 93 to 2001. So that just shows you the dominance that FAMU had during that period. The 2 other years, we won in 2016 and 2017. But again, during that Humphrey era, 10 men's awards, 9 women's awards, all during that era of, during the Dr. Frederick Humphreys era. And we'll talk about his lasting legacy on FAMU athletics in just a moment. Any other streaks? I just kind of bullet pointed a couple things, guys. Kelvin, you mentioned volleyball's dominance. They went to the NCAA tournament 11 times which is still the most in the MEAC. We won 9 consecutive MEAC tournament titles from 2001 to 2009 and have won 13 overall. Softball won the first ever MEAC championship in 1993, then won 6 of the first 7 years. Then they won 7 more titles from 05 to 2017, including a 4-peat from 2014 to 2017, all under the legendary Veronica Wiggins. How about this, guys? Talk about what the MEAC is losing and what the SWAC is gaining. 23 years of 27 MEAC championships belong to 2 schools, FAMU and Bethune-Cookman. All that's going over to the SWAC. You talk about SWAC softball getting tougher and picking up some legendary teams. Baseball, we have the second most championships with 8. Of course, Bethune-Cookman has 19. So again, what is the MEAC losing? What is the SWAC gaining? FAMU had a period from 1987 to 2003. We were either first or second every year during that 17-year run, except for 4 years. We won 6 titles in 8 years. And then we had a run where we finished second in 7 of 9 years. So it was like, if we weren't winning it, we were losing it in the championship game. So that was baseball. And then for our ladies in women's basketball, they actually won 2 tournament championships in 95 and 98. They won a couple of outright titles, regular season in 94 and 95, 95 and 96, behind the great Natalie White and Kathy Robinson. Those were my peers. Those were my years on the yard. Natalie White, of course, one of the all-time steals leader. Actually, in terms of all-time single season, FAMU has the Jasmine Grice, who holds the all-time single season points record. Natalie White has the all-time single season steals record. And Martha Howard, 1979, most points in a single game with 44, still stands as somebody actually tied that back in 96, but it still stands as one of the most points scored. So that's just some of the things that and I think we mentioned earlier, tennis. We mentioned some of the success from tennis and track and field. So I mean, look, we've had some great years in the MEAC. So lots of championships outside of football, and I'll end it. We'll end this segment on this question: other than football, which sport are you most looking forward to in the SWAC? I'll start with you, Kelvin.
So I know you said outside of football, but I'm gonna throw one more MEAC memory in there on the way out, right?
Okay.
So because we hadn't been beating Bethune-Cookman since 2010.
Right.
That has to be my favorite moment in the MEAC. As you talk about season, because we ended up tying for the conference championship, and they were undefeated. That was Brian Jenkins led team. So I just wanted to get that in there. Now, in terms of the SWAC and the sport I'm most anxious to see is baseball. SWAC has been known for great baseball programs. Southern has been dominant, had a lot of pro players. Jackson State is always competitive. So I am definitely, Coach Shoup has done a great job with this program. We just won the baseball title back in 2019, the tournament title. So I'm just really to see that competition week in and week out.
What about you, Kofi?
I'm going to have to say basketball to see how our teams fare. A lot of times with the SWAC basketball teams, they will bring their pep bands to games. So it'll be a different animal going into the SWAC and watching our teams actually go up against the Texas Southerns of the world, who've been pretty dominant, the Texas teams, the Jackson State teams, which have been pretty good of late, to see how we fare. And then, of course, The women's team's pretty much like the same thing. There's some powerhouse women's basketball teams in the SWAC, and it's going to be interesting to see how we stack up.
Yeah, you mentioned basketball. That's for me. Because I thought about our women's programs right now, and I don't know if it's maybe just a down year, or we're kind of on that kind of hill where we're maybe down in the valley a little bit on some of our women's programs. Hopefully they'll be, on the upscale coming up here in the upcoming seasons. But I'm interested men's basketball for me, because what Coach McCollum has done the last couple of years with the program is he has made us a legitimate team in the MEAC. And the MEAC has had legitimate, Norfolk State, North Carolina A&T, Central, Coppin, Morgan, teams that we have fared well against and beaten these last couple of seasons. And those 4 or 5 programs I mentioned have all had good teams these last couple of years. And I would dare say might be better overall than what's in the SWAC. Now, the SWAC has a couple of dominant teams over the last couple of years in Jackson State, Texas Southern, and who am I forgetting? Prairie View,
Alabama A&M, Alabama State.
Yeah,
they're all
those 3. But in terms of I think there's a separation from those 3 and the rest of them, in my opinion. And so I think we can come in and slide right in there, right below maybe those top 3 or 4, these top 3, that top tier. And we can really come in and have some success and might even be able to, I don't even know, we might be able to shock some people and might even be able to win a regular season championship. I don't know, just a thought. If the trend continues with what I've seen from Coach McCollum in the program. Let's end on a thought or two. Excuse me. On obviously, we've recently learned the sad news of the passing of Dr. Frederick S. Humphreys. I think we're all Humphreys era Rattlers, aren't we?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we, that's our president, so to speak, and I think any Humphreys era Rattler who came in, whether you came in under one of his scholarship programs, such as the Life Gets Better Scholarship. He also had the graduate school feeder program. If you were a National Achievement Scholar, if you were there when FAMU was selected by Time Magazine and Princeton Review as the College of the Year in '97, you were part of those great years at Florida A&M. And that's not me getting emotional. I'm just kind of coughing here. I'm sorry. It's sad that we've lost Dr. Humphreys, but we're so thankful for what he meant to the university, what he meant to athletics, as we just talked about. So I thought we'd kind of close out with maybe a thought or two that you guys might have on Dr. Humphreys and his time at FAMU from 1985 to 2001.
So the first thing for me would be, of course, the iconic Rattler chant, right? It's synonymous. You can't go to a FAMU event, period, without the president doing that chant. And even though I done heard it thousands of times now, every time it gives me just chills. And of course, different people do it differently. Nobody can live up to the way Doc did it, though. It was just special. And so of course, with every athletic event, home event that is performed, and and to see visiting teams and fans see that. And then one of the things they always talk about, man, now that's special there. I like that. Right. So he gave us that. And then of course you talk about what he meant, his tenure, you know, from what, 85 to 2000, 2001. We were great in everything, right? We were trendsetters, whether it be athletics, whether it be academics, whether it be fundraising at a corporate level. And then the fact that he had the energy to do all of this, but still had humility and the accessibility that he had, and that he could remember names, majors, where you from, and he felt like, you know, he was your friend, right? He was just an amazing person, and of course, his accomplishments speak for themselves.
Yeah, President Humphreys was definitely a genius, just a straight genius. Everything that my brother Kelvin just stated is absolutely true. But what I would leave everyone with is the Bible says that without a vision, the people perish. What President Humphreys came and did for FAMU was establish vision. He gave us an insight in terms of where we were. He gave insight of where we were going, and he gave details as to how we were going to get there. And then when we saw the manifestation of that vision begin to manifest, the enrollment began to increase. The word began to get out about the greatness of Florida, of, as he would say it, the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. And so he restored the mystique of FAMU. He came to FAMU at a time when FAMU was good and was great in some areas, but when he came, FAMU became great in every single area. And it's due to his vision, it's due to his passion. He was the overseer. He brought great people in. He was not intimidated by anybody else's greatness. He was able to stand on his own 2 feet and was willing to do whatever it took to get the very best and the brightest at FAMU.
Well said. Dr. Humphreys, of course, a Rattler himself, graduated magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry in 1957, went on to receive his doctorate, master's and doctorate, went on to teach, came back to FAMU as a professor in '68, then became the director of the 13 college curriculum program for HBCUs, would later become the president at Tennessee State University and oversaw Tennessee State's landmark acquisition or merger of a predominantly white institution with the University of Tennessee Nashville campus, and then later becoming the president at Florida A&M for 16 years. And those were I mean, just imagine that period of time. The one thing about our era that I'm always fascinated by, guys, we grew up and we came through this technology that sort of runs our world and the way we talk about sports and things of that nature. We grew up with typewriters and got to the new millennium with cell phones and laptop computers that we could take anywhere. You know, I mean, we transitioned technology. We watched the transition of technology and what it meant for us, those of us who had encyclopedias in the foyer of your house, and you had to do research by going to the library to actually, you know, where we could just on our computers find out information. And so all of that, the challenges of that growing period of time, especially on a university, And FAMU did not fall behind. FAMU did not fall behind. And unfortunately, he left a very high bar for those who came after him. And it was very tough for many of his predecessors to reach. I think I'm being fair in saying that. And but he set a very high bar, and his athletic prowess, support was evident. And you said it yourself, Kofi, about your recollection of that convocation of him wanting winners. He wanted us to achieve greatness at every level, athletically and academically. And I've always felt that when your president understands that, and when your president, and I take this all the way down to high school level, when your top leader understands the importance of athletic success and how it can motivate and inspire everyone, because we can all achieve. Yes, we all want academic achievement and success, but having it on the athletic stage also increases the brand of visibility. He understood that. And that's what he got. And that's why those years are considered some of the golden years of Florida A&M University. And we hope, we think we may be in a sort of rebirth. It remains to be seen. But the bar that he set is still trying to be achieved to this day. And so we're thankful to have been Humphrey's era Rattlers. And so our prayers have definitely been with the Humphreys family, our entire community, those who knew him well, those who knew him from afar. I'm one of those people who knew him from afar, but I never felt intimidated not to shake his hand and say hello when I did see him. So that's the beauty of being one of Hump's kids, I guess one of Humphrey's kids. So, all right, well, fellas, that's going to do it for this first edition of the O&G Strike Zone. You'll see on the screen our social media information. If you want to reach out to us, let us know your thoughts on this show and upcoming shows. We'll keep you informed. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe to the O&G Strike Zone wherever you are watching and listening to shows. And that way you'll stay abreast as our next show. We've got more to talk about, plenty to chat on as we get ready for this new season of athletics. And we'll have more segments, more conversations. Try not to get ourselves in trouble already. And we'll kind of go from there. Any final thoughts, Kelvin, before we sign off?
Just want to say again, thank you for the opportunity. This is a new experience for me. I enjoy it, and I hope that Rattler Nation embraces it as we move forward.
Well said. Kofi, final thoughts?
And let's go Rattlers, man. Let's get ready for this fall and this Orange Blossom Classic in Miami. God bless you.
Well said. So for Kofi Hemmingway, Kelvin Rosier, I'm Bryan Fulford. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Share, like, and subscribe. Let us know what you think. And we'll be back for another episode of the O&G Strike Zone on the Black College Sports Network, Pod Network. Peace out.
Clouds gather on the horizon when thunder and lightning pierce the sky, when faith but a glint in the eye of a fallen rattler, and hope a lost friend, when the sinew of the chest grows weary and the muscles in the legs grow tired from those hard charging linebackers. You must always remember